Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back once again to Fat Cat Collections. And I want to welcome whoever might be watching this video from a different platform. This video is going to be shared possibly on Amazon and a few other places, so welcome. And today I want to give you guys my 2 cents on a great product that was sent to me the other day by a company I work with quite often. This is a sharpening stone, and I got to tell you, this is an exceptional value. And over the years, if you don't know, I have always been into fishing and outdoors and that kind of stuff. And as I've gotten older, I don't really get to do it that often. Crabbing and fishing, I do get to do that pretty often. But I'm not a hunter, but I always value a good sharp blade. I mean, knives are tools. And when I did used to cook, I used to be believe it or not, a Asian cuisine chef for many years. We're going back quite some time, but not any kind of fancy schmancy restaurant. It was more of just a little local place. But I was trained by some guys who used to cook for a very famous hotel in Hong Kong, and guys who really knew their stuff. So I was lucky enough to, as a young guy, to learn how to cook Asian food, Chinese food, basically. And so I always, I haven't done it in quite some time, but you never really kind of lose your technique and kind of lose the basics, right? So I was always cutting meat, and we used to cut so much meat, and one real issue we had was we never had great knives, and cutting 300 pounds of chicken every 4 days was a real pain. And I can tell you, I've cut myself a few times, nicked my wrist here, slid off the edge of a knife, and nothing's worse than not having a good sharp blade. And so this is something I think that every kitchen anywhere really could benefit from. The price is so good, and let me tell you, when you put an edge on a blade with something like this, it's far different than just the ones you're going to buy from Bed Bath & Beyond, whatever, where it's just basically a V-shaped double stone, and they're convenient to put a quick edge on something, but you really don't get a good edge like you do with something like this. So let's just go ahead and show you what you get. The price of this is $39.99 through Amazon. Link is in description as always, and if you are watching this video on Amazon, you're already here. So let me just show you guys what you get in the package. And I'll tell you guys, I have had sharpening stones in the past. I actually still have one I got as a kid downstairs. And I will tell you that even going back, I'd say maybe 35 years when I got that, it was pretty expensive, So generally stuff like this, if you were to check some of the websites and some of the sportsman shops, you're going to have a hard time getting a value like this. So what do you get in the kit? This is a very important part of this kit, and this is basically a guide. And as a kind of a novice knife sharpener, the real issue with sharpening a knife is having a consistent angle, and that's the most important part of sharpening the knife. And so this is really a game changer, a really amazing addition to this. Like I said, my sharpening knives I've had in the past, you basically have to kind of hold the angle yourself. And it takes a lot of practice, and I never really mastered it. So this is fantastic. So you get the again, the angle guide, okay, and then you get several different grits here. So you get 2 rubber bases, and this is really handy to stop the stones from moving around. You do get a base right here, a bamboo base with a huge rubber bottom, okay? And then, of course, you get your sharpening stones. Let me just bring this up a little bit here so you guys can see it a little better here. All right, so you get your bamboo base, your rubber inserts, which these fit inside the bamboo base. Nice sturdy platform here, nice rubber coated bottom. And then you get several different stones. Now, I've already soaked these, and this is a wet stone kit. So some stones out there you'll see are basically like dry stones. Other ones are wet stones, and the other stones are you can use oil. Now I believe if you were a diehard and you've been sharpening knives for a while and you do get something like this, I believe you can still use oil on this, but you don't have to. Oil's just your lubricating element in this whole thing. So and you also get a flattening stone. So this is great to keep your stones level, and that's one important thing when you're sharpening a knife. These stones can't be wobbly. They have to maintain a nice flat straight edge. So this is going to allow you to clean the stone and to keep that edge nice and flat. So what you'll basically do is, these are brand new so you don't have to do this, what you'll do is you'll grab your base and you'll put this right in the bamboo base, and you can actually use these without the base if you didn't want to use the base. Pop that right in here so you have a nice stable surface, and then what you do is you'll basically take this and scratch it right over the top here, like so. Now again, these are brand new, so you don't really have to do this, but of course you're going to use more pressure when you do that, and you don't have to go crazy with it. And what you're doing is basically just getting that edge back, or getting the stone back to where it's completely flat. Now this, again, is right out of the box, brand new. I have had these soaking in water for about 15 minutes, and so I'm going to demonstrate how this works. So now, based on what I've read on their website and of course their Amazon listing, they show you using a couple different grits. When it comes to basically getting a nice smooth surface, it's just like when you're working on paint, right? You basically go with the coarsest grain all the way up to the finest to really hone and get your nice clean edge. So what you get with this is you get your starting point, which is going to be your 400 grit stone. Then you have on the flip side to that a 1000 grit, and then you get really fine with your 3000 and 8000, which is really going to get a super fine, just really well honed edge, right? So what you do is basically, when you start this, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to have your knife, and I don't have anything really high-end when it comes to knives. This is probably the nicest knife I have. I don't really know, who it's made by. It does say Japan National, U.S. headquarters, USA. I'm not sure who makes this, but I've had this knife. It says Precision Hollow Ground. That might be the name, but this knife is probably over 50 years old. But anyway, I haven't cooked at home very often. I've been cooking a lot at my folks' house, doing a lot of sous vide and grilling and barbecuing and smoking. So I use their knives. But this is a fantastic knife. I've used it for years. So what you want to do is basically, first off, just legal disclaimer, always use safe practices of doing that, and if you are not an adult and not responsible yourself, have your parents help you, right? So this is the only part here that you got to be a little careful on. Is this is pretty tight, so be very careful when you're sliding this guard onto the knife. All right, once it's on, what I like to do is basically just take it from the edge and just gently make sure it's all the way to the back, right? So you want this angle guard right to the back of the knife, and I believe it feels like almost like these little white parts of the guard, or I guess the angle guide, are they feel like they're almost like a ceramic of some sort, or stone. So pretty cool. So once you have that on there, you're going to pick your coarsest stone. So in this case, we're going to take the 400. I'm going to pop it in the rubber base here, so it's nice and stable, like so. And so what you're going to do is basically just take the edge, and this kind of speaks for itself, but you're basically just going to take the edge, keep this nice and flat. And this is a little bit tricky because you are kind of working with a smaller surface, and even though these stones are pretty big, this is a large knife, and you're just going to basically slide the blade right against the stone, like so. Keeping that angle, and this will take a little practice. Obviously I'm pretty rusty at this, but you're basically going to sharpen it like this. Keep that angle. Of course, one thing you want to do is put a little water on this to keep this wet. These are damp right now. Normally you would just put a little bit of water, but for the video I don't want to make a mess right here. And then you're going to do the same thing towards you. And it gets a little bit tricky because this guide isn't super long, so you are going to kind of fall off the edge of the stone. And you can move this if you want to kind of work the edge a little better. And of course, be careful when you're doing this. And it's going to take a little bit of a technique here. So once you're moving this across the stone, you want to make sure that you're kind of following the shape of the blade. And again, it gets a little tricky towards the edge, and you're going to have to just kind of learn that even though you have the guide on this, you want to just try to keep this at the same angle and keep it flat. And again, this is something that takes a little bit of practice. Obviously, I'm no expert at this. And as you get to the edge of the knife, you kind of want to try not to grind the point into the stone, but try to keep it as even as you can. And you might have to, along the way here, move this down a little. And again, be really careful when you're sliding this on. And if you want to work the edge like that, you can move it down. And again, you're going to have a little bit of an issue here as you're doing this, because even at this angle, you can see this is not touching the stone. So you're ultimately going to have to really just kind of get the technique down where you're just kind of, as you're sharpening, as you're moving the knife across the stone, you're kind of gently gliding the front of the knife or the tip of the knife into the stone, nice and gentle. So again, you know, it's going to take a little bit to kind of keep working this. Now, once you get past that point and you're satisfied with the edge you've put on the knife, you're just going to work your way down. Now, in one of their demonstration videos, they went right from the 400 to, I believe, right into the 3000. What I like to do anytime I'm sharpening a knife is I just go in order, and you're just going to basically working it right down until you get to the finest. Just like if you were to, you know, be buffing out some paint on your car, it's the same thing. If you're doing any kind of wet sanding on your vehicle, if you've ever done that, or if you've used a headlight polishing kit, it's the same principle. You're using the coarsest sandpaper, basically. With this, it's the coarsest stone, and you're basically just making this blade. You're taking a thin layer of metal off the knife, and you're bringing it down to where you're putting an edge on it, and then as you go to the finer grit, you're smoothing that edge out where it's not so where there's no burrs on it. If you guys have ever seen, like in a kitchen, you have the I forget exactly what it's called. It's people think a lot of times it is a sharpening stone. It's basically that steel rod, and you basically just slide the knife across the rod. You're not really sharpening the knife. You're actually just removing the burrs. That's kind of what you're doing on this. And what I would recommend is once you're done, still use one of those to make sure you get all the burrs off it. So again, same thing. We're just gonna work the knife across the stone. And like I said, guys, it's going to take a little bit of practice to get this edge. You might want to hold the knife kind of like I'm doing here towards the tip. And again, you're just working that edge. And with practice, you'll get consistent. That's really what you're trying to do, is just get this consistent across the stone. And you can see even with a little bit that I'm doing it here, I'm starting to get that angle correct. And what happens with this just kind of keeps your angle. It keeps it right where you need to be. And as you get to the edge, just kind of follow through. Keep it nice and smooth and follow through with that same angle and that same pressure. And as you keep going to the finest grit, and now we're just going to jump down to the 3000. And again, same principle here. And as you get to a finer grit, you want to go lighter and lighter with the knife. So once you get down to that 8000, you're gently bringing the knife, gliding the knife right across the stone. I mean, it's not rocket science, guys. It's pretty straightforward. This is how people have been sharpening knives for a really long time. It's just really getting it down where you're being consistent and you kind of get that technique. So this edge is getting nice and sharp right now, and it's getting smooth as well. So finally, you're going to finish off with the 8000. And remember, there's no set rules on how to do this, guys. If you want to again jump right from the 400 and bring it right over to the maybe, what do they have? The 400 right to the 3000. You can do that, but I do recommend just working the stone, working the blade across the stone, until you get all the way down to the fine 8000. This is going to ensure that you're getting a really nice, smooth, super sharp edge on this thing. Yeah, that's pretty sharp. And now you may get to the point where you may get done with this and find, all right, well, I need to go back. And again, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to get the technique down. That's basically how it works. Once you're done with that, I would take basically a honing bar, I think it's called, and basically just knock the burrs off this. But at this point, you're not really going to have a lot of burrs. This is a pretty fine stone. And again, just work it like so. And with a little practice, you will be getting a super sharp edge on all your knives. And I think this knife, because has been used in a while, I would probably go back to the coarsest grit and work that a little bit harder. So again, you might have to put a little bit harder pressure on it when you first start out to really break down the metal, to really get that edge on there, and then you're basically just honing it right down to the very end where you're getting a nice, smooth, razor sharp edge. Yeah, that's pretty sharp. So that's about it, guys. Pretty straightforward. Again, you get the 4 different grits. You get the holder, 2 rubber bases, your angle guide, and of course your flattening stone. One technique you want to use after you use this and you want to flatten out the stone to make sure it's completely flat is you want to trace some squares on this and with a pencil, and as you move the stone across the other stone, you'll see that pencil starts to be kind of scraped away, and once it's evenly scraped, you know that you've got this as flat as you're possibly going to get it with this. So anyway, guys, that's about it. I want to thank you guys for coming over to the channel or coming over to the listing here and checking us out. Again, for $39, this is an exceptional value, and I encourage you, if you are, again, a cook or a chef, or again, anybody who cooks or has a kitchen who wants to keep a nice sharp edge on your blades, this is a great product. Also, something like this, you know, this might encourage you to invest maybe in some better knives, and I'll put a link in the description with some of the ones that I've heard about, some of the ones that have some really great reviews on Amazon. Remember, guys, this is not rocket science, but it's always good to have a nice set of blades in your kitchen. Obviously, if you're a chef or a cook, you know, you guys obviously know the importance of a fantastic blade. So, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a comment. I can bump those up to the manufacturer, and you guys have a great evening. Take care.